One. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to the Solution Club after a bit of a break. James, I thought you had the microphone or so, and we were talking about how people had come to learn about the planetary crisis, Guy McPherson and his predictions, et cetera, et cetera. So whoever was talking, please carry on. I'm going on mute.
Yeah, I'm just interested to know people's stories, and James told his story about how he'd come to it, and I was just asking everybody in the room if how they came across near-term extinction.
Well, if you want, I'll reiterate a little bit of what I said there last anyway, because we weren't recording when we were talking on the break. But as I said, basically, I've known about this whole subject for about the last 5 years, I suppose. Really, like I've only up until that I've only known really the average information about the global situation where regarding climate and or ecosystem and everything else, pollution. Mostly what everybody else knows from the mainstream media, and generally not taking a whole lot of notice of it like most people as well at the time. But in the last 3 years or so, when I, as I said, when I was studying for the thesis, I ended up doing a lot of research into that area. And the more I did research, the more I already was familiar with Guy McPherson, but back then, good few years ago, there was a bit of a campaign against him to smear what he was saying, and a misinformation campaign about him and everything else. So I knew what he was saying was making sense, but at the same time, I didn't take it all in 100% at the time either. 3 years ago, that started to settle in a bit more, and I started researching it more intensely in the last 2 years. And as I said to So, then in the last year alone, when the truth really hit through, and it sank in, I went through a deep state of depression for about a year over the whole situation, because once the truth set in, it wasn't, when you do realize with the severity of the situation we're facing, you don't think of yourself at all, as I said to So. You think about your children, you think about your loved ones and your friends and your community in general, everything, because you look at it as on the whole straight away. You don't think of it. It's not like going to the doctor and being told, you have 6 months to live or 12 months to live, and to go away and deal with that kind of a scenario. It's been told by the doctor, you have 6 months or 12 months to live, and so does your family, and so do your friends, and so does everybody else. And that's what the truth resonating with you, it really is. And straight away, I went into a state of depression and a state of alarm about, I need to let my family know what's going on, and there are ways we can prepare about these things. That was when I started following, when I was doing all that research and looking at things on YouTube. I came across the Radish platform then, and the beginnings of the Radish collective intelligence. And I followed that, just watching your videos for a number of months, while I was looking into a lot of others like Jem Bendel and Stuart Scott and Peter Wadhams and Dr. Ira Leifer. And I went through the lot, and I went through their papers as well. And I have that inquisitive nature as well. And when the last COP25 failed last year, then that was when it definitely resonated with me that we're fucking on our own now, and it's up to ourselves to look out for each other. As I said, throughout the whole COP, not once was the global dimming mentioned, and they were aware of it, but they were definitely under some form of pressure not to mention it. They were pushed to a corner. They weren't, the whole story was made about the politicians and what they were trying to do, and it was all hype about it for a year. And then at the end of the whole lot of it, the politicians come up with the only decision they could make was that they couldn't make a decision because America pulled out, and Russia pulled out, and China pulled out, and Syria pulled out, and Pakistan pulled out, and India pulled out, and you know what I mean? So that doesn't give anyone hope then. So that was the time I had came across Peter Miller and his near-term human extinction hospice conversations on YouTube. And I started following his journey when he met Guy McPherson and how the truth sank into him, part 1, part 2, And by part 3, he was at the bargaining stage like I was, but there has to be a way out of it. You know what I mean? And he was talking to Guy McPherson about this. So it was interesting to watch his journey. And after about after about 4 shows with Guy McPherson himself, he started off the near-term human extinction hospice conversations for those who know what's going on, who are in the picture, and who feel they've no one to talk about and are going through this kind of a hospice situation. And I felt I was going through that at the time. I was at the acceptance stage at that stage, didn't I? So I found his conversation to be very, very useful during January, start of January, and helpful to me. But and I would urge anyone that's in the frame of mind that like this and they're in the know and they feel they've no one to talk to on a level like that, to look up Peter Miller's hospice conversations, and there's a link on how to make an appointment with him. So yeah, that's where I came from, that's where I was, and that's how I found the Collective Intelligence Block Party, and I'm sticking with this because this is the way to go. As I said, we're on our own, and we have to come together now as community and a global community at that, and look out for each other. Because when the shit hits the fan at any situation in the last number of years, with any crisis that's after happening, whether it was Hurricane Katrina, whether it's the Australian fires, whether it's the floods, it's the people on the ground that are being affected that come out and help each other. Yeah, the paramedics and everything else do what they can as well, but generally they're left on their fucking own, and they're abandoned afterwards as well, because so much of it's going on now at the moment that it's very easy to forget that these catastrophes only happened a few weeks ago, because there's another one to take our focus off it, and we forget about that in a few weeks as well, and the people left in this shit. So that's the reason I'm here, because it's no longer time for the ordinary people to be left in this shit. We deserve better than that. We deserve to have a normal, decent life like anyone else. And why should that be something we have to slave for? You know what I mean? Simple and plain. We have to look out for our children and the next generations. That's why we're here. Thanks.
Beautiful, James. Beautiful. Thank you. What a great conversation. Just jump in if you feel like sharing. Everyone.
I can share that actually I'm learning really a lot about the environmental injustices still. My journey started with a health crisis for me and my family, kind of like the same thing like James was talking about. When you hear news and it's not just about you, it's about your family. You can tell me I'm sick, I'm fine, but when you start talking about my family, my children, and we were all in crisis. So I had to make drastic changes to our lifestyle, and that's what led me to a plant-based lifestyle. When that started healing us and we started recovering from our diseases is when I started learning more and studying so that I can go and help other people. And that's when I enrolled in the T. Colin Campbell course for plant-based nutrition. And that's such a comprehensive course. And that brought in all of the systemic injustices and the corruption and the environmental injustices and the social injustices. That's what really gave me the broader perspective of what was going on with our food choices. And that's how I got involved with Dr. Sailesh Rao in Vegan World 2026. We met at a conference. We became friends. I began to volunteer with him, and then my nonprofit started organizing his events. And now we collaborate on a lot of these kind of projects to help the community because of the bigger picture, because of the destruction, the devastation that's on our way. And especially for me, my passions and my experiences, how I synthesize this knowledge and then be of service is to go back to the most vulnerable in our communities that are going to be the ones that are most vulnerable, especially the children of these communities, to be the first climate refugees. And it's just unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And I guess that's where the divine feminine rises up in me and says, this is not going to happen. So I think it was kind of seeing that a lot of the things that I went through in my life, not just health-wise, not just spiritual-wise, but not just social justice-wise, but even environmental, what's going on with my children, all was from this system of normalized violence and how we were commodifying beings and how we were destroying Mother Nature. Like, when I saw that perspective, that's when I just said I couldn't anymore. And I started learning And it was through Silesh that then I was introduced to Radish and the social club and Jamin, and the rest is history.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah. Great sharing. And, you know, I'll share, well, I'd like others to go before me if anyone's waiting to go. Otherwise, I'll share that I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in a, you know, very progressive household. And my dad was always involved in community projects, the Sierra Club, local stuff, whether it's making a freeway interchange safer or making the East Bay Hills safer in terms of fire preparedness and whatnot, to the East Bay Regional Park, which my dad was probably the single biggest force behind. And now we've got this interconnected East Bay Regional Park, including shoreline, hills. Anyway, Dad did so much great stuff for the community, and it just rubbed off on me totally that's, you know, that's the way to go. And so I did lots of volunteer work in high school. I did volunteer work in Mexico for whole summers and winter vacations, and was just on a mission to do everything I could to end poverty and hunger. That's always been my passion ever since I was like 14 years old. Living in Spain, seeing poverty everywhere, and saying this is just wrong. We've got to organize to take care of everyone. And so in high school, I did volunteer work in Latin America with that end in mind, focused mainly on the sanitation part, like we were talking about earlier, doing latrine construction, health education, etc. And in college, I studied civil engineering with the mission to forward all that, but at a larger scale. And in the process, I learned about global warming. This was like way back in like 1990, right? And, but at the time it was like, okay, it's kind of like this far off train wreck that could be happening. And, you know, between now and then, I'm sure we'll come up with technologies and all that. I mean, we're engineers and, you know, we've got all kinds of disciplines and this and that, and we'll figure something out was kind of the prevailing feeling. And so, for me as a student, you know, with the game that I had learned of hoarding, right, and ego and building up me first and then others later, my wanting to do something about climate change was somewhat framed in that perspective, I'm ashamed to say. And so I thought, okay, well, you know, I can get on some academic track or something like that, to address this. So I'll go to the best graduate school I can and, you know, get an advanced degree or two and maybe become a professor or whatever. And, you know, thinking about me and what's in it for me. Oh, and I'll do all this on the topic of global warming, right? And what can we do about it? But it was always me first. And, you know, the world, yeah, I'll focus on the world, but I got to get paid for it kind of thing. And I've got to get, you know, accumulate assets, whether degrees or accolades or whatever, resume. And that's really, for me, that's been kind of a growing, profound realization of really what's wrong here and what it's going to take for us to get through this bottleneck. But anyway, so I was working on this and concerned about this going back to 1990. And when I saw Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth in 2006, that was another wake-up call that, whoa, this is really at our doorstep. What can we do about this? And then I started working on a computer system to figure out what would be the optimal food production and delivery network worldwide that would also help us heal the climate, the planet, the atmosphere, etc. Right? And that kind of set me on a whole journey, a multi-year journey, working on that computer system and studying the problem, and then creating a whole cannabis company and campaign where I dedicated 100% of my share of the profits to ending hunger and also wanting to take it in that direction of, how do we transform the economy? How do we transform business, right, to this new model, a compassionate model? So I was kind of chipping away on multiple sides of the and then it was not until like late 2016, I saw my first Guy McPherson video, and it was just like a punch in the stomach. And I went to bed that night, and it was just like, oh my God, my world would never be the same. I just knew it. And that suddenly we're on this incredible time frame. And so I, got in touch with Guy and invited him to come up and give a talk at the Sierra Club, since I'm program chair of the East Bay Sierra Club dinners, and which are now totally on pause. But anyway, he came up and we had a great talk and a great after dinner discussion and all that. And we're just, grappling with these twin monsters of exponential planetary overheating and, this pandemic of delusion, right? This mass delusion that humanity is under, right? Those twin monsters, what a deadly combination. This would be bad enough, but it could be manageable if humanity didn't have its head up its butt, right? But oh my goodness, with humanity in a state of mass delusion, it makes this one near impossible to solve until this moment right now, right? Where the whole house of cards is flattened, everybody's grounded, everything's on the table, and it's like, what do we do? And the world is now hungry for solutions, literally hungry for solutions. And so I think this will come as an extremely welcome solution and a challenge. We'll say, look, this is what we're doing. A lot of people are doing a lot of things, but we need to have the conversation, not so that we get everyone to agree on what well, anyway, that's a whole other topic. We're talking about experiences and how we got here. And now I'm just going 100 miles an hour again, but I'm going to mute myself and let others share.
How did you meet Sailesh? How did that wonderful coming together happen?
Yeah. Let's see, who's that gentleman in the Northeast? Is it Jeff Koons? I think it's Jeff Koons, who connected us via email and said, "Hey, Jamin, Sailesh, you guys gotta meet each other." All right. So we connected, and I invited Sailesh to come to what was then called the Social Club at the end of the world, which is now the Solution Club, this meeting here. And he came and started coming, and we just started interviewing each other and hanging out together, and so it just kind of grew from there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All righty. Would anyone else like to share about how they came to the realizations they've come to, the knowledge, the networks of people, etc.?
I already when we weren't on recording, I already told my story, but very briefly. It's only just over a year since I came across Guy McPherson. I've been very involved in environmental, political causes for a lot of years, 20 plus years. And yeah, I didn't see it as a near-term thing at all. And then I bumped into Extinction Rebellion on the bridges with their insect banners, all the insects are going and all that. And I went home and I just started studying everything. So it was the insect banner that kind of triggered me. And then very quickly I discovered Guy McPherson and watched all his videos, pretty much like James. I was devoured everything, Jem Bendel, everything. And I went through a kind of bargaining phase when I became vegan. I'd already been vegetarian for donkey's years, but I think that was me bargaining, me trying to control the whole thing by going vegan. And then I came through, gradually came through the other side, and I was quite cheerful about it all, really. I just, it sounds a bit mad, but I was just kind of accepting it, and I just wanted to have the conversation. And then one of the little videos I watched with Guy McPherson, I came across this collective and joined up about a week ago. So there you go.
And it's never been the same since.
It's never been the same since. Thank you, James. I've got my gang now.
You got your gang. Totally. Welcome. Well, welcome home. Welcome home. And what a conversation it is.
Well, Emery's out of action with his denture problem today, so he can't speak. Natalie's a mute. She just won't speak for some reason, which I can't understand because I can't shut her up when she comes into my house. But so, and Stephanie has been quiet as well at the moment, so I think she's just listening.
No, and that's quite fine. I mean, I think we're doing awesome today. And I'm grateful for these smaller group meetings where we can, you know, we can really kind of get into, I mean, we got like 30 people and like 7 are waiting to talk, you know, it becomes a bit much. But anyway, so I think this is an awesome one. So what I'd like to propose, if we're done sharing about kind of how we got here to this realization, I'd like to stop this recording and start a new one where we get back onto the solution, the conversation, the goal, the strategy, etc. Shall we do it? All right, let's do it.